All right. Are we recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll call this special meeting of the Public Utilities Commission to order for Monday, actually, this is a regular meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, regular meeting, Monday, January 7th, 2019. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. There's no public here for public input, no correspondence unless anything came in. All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 17th.
I'll make that motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
All right, any corrections, any comments? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries. Financials. To open the floor for discussion, I'll put a motion on the floor to approve invoices for PUC approval dated Monday, January 7, 2019. There are 8 items totaling $88,476.53. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, so you guys take a look over those. If you have any questions, Bob and Tom are both here.
Danellis.
That didn't take long.
My favorite contractor. Where do we stand with that?
This is now, this 17,881.11 is the final amount of his last invoice, which he submitted over 1 year ago. He submitted an invoice back in December of 17, and minus the retainage, it totaled 80,000 plus. During the year, we made 2 partial payments, one in March, one in May. We had a 47,000 plus payment and a 14,000 plus payment. And the balance now is 17,881, and we are now agreeing to release that based on him completing finally all the items that we had on our punch list.
Do we still owe him any retainage?
We still owe him the full amount of the retainage, which I don't have that number handy, but
Okay.
it's 60,000 plus.
Okay.
You know, since that project was so darn delayed, do we really have to give them the retainage back?
Well, the retainage is really also subcontractors and stuff, so.
Yeah, I
we
don't,
really can't.
the
hold
delay
that
didn't
back.
cause us to lose any out-of-pocket money either, so I don't,
And we did end up, I don't know what the value of that pump was, it's probably $25,000, that pump system that he agreed to leave.
I couldn't give you a number, but he did leave it.
yeah,
He did leave it with us, so we do have it.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, guys? All right, hearing none, so we have a motion on the floor to approve 88,476.53. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That carries. Director's report, Tom?
All right, I have a couple of minor items, and then the rest of my stuff is obviously the submittals that are in the new business and the old business. But one of the items I included was a summary of the water and sewer emergency generators. I know we discussed that at a previous meeting, and it had been asked to provide a summary with the number of hours on each. So I have the location, size, the data manufacturer, and the number of hours at this point. So really, just for informational purposes, I think it's something I'll continue to evaluate for future capital improvements and budgeting.
All right.
Tom, can you get meeting numbers on that?
Sir,
You have it.
it would have been in Kathy's email on Friday.
Oh, okay.
What numbers were you looking for?
And the meter numbers.
Oh,
The meter, you know.
Oh, the meter.
The meter numbers.
Oh.
So when you track them to the bills, you've got size, right? And you got all the locations.
Okay.
I'm just thinking from our point of view,
I don't know what meter, the hour meter?
No, the
electrical
electrical
meter.
meters.
electrical meters, I'm sorry.
And the buildings.
Oh, okay, that's not related to this. This is just the emergency generators and how many hours are on those engines.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. But we get the, I'm sorry. something other, but the locations, we got the locations.
Mhm.
I got a question to ask.
Yeah.
That's
sure.
an issue for another time.
On these generators, Eureka's, the 45 kW were put in 1976. Do we have the make of all these generators? Are they similar to, or different?
I do. I didn't bog it down with all the information. We have the make and model number, certainly.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm looking at Clark Park, 40 kW, 1974.
Yep, both of
Clark
them.
Park 2, 40 kW, 1974, 1,197 hours.
Yep.
And Eureka had 206.
No, that-
I mean,
that-
don't we have to look at the older ones and see what condition they're in?
Yeah,
I mean, they got 3 times the amount of hours on them.
I think it's gonna vary with, certainly they get exercise, so that puts a little bit of time on them, and then your power outages.
Mhm. Don't understand it, but I'm looking at Eureka with only 206 hours.
yeah.
And the other one's got 1,197.
Hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I
Yeah,
think that's just as critical as the one that has 206 on it. Especially down at the
Can you ask them to
corporate.
verify that? I mean, 206 hours for a machine that is that old, has gotta be, something's gotta be wrong with it.
Yeah,
right.
I'll take a look.
Yeah.
I'll look into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 10,206 and it rolled over,
Or-
like if you don't have enough digits on the repair.
Maybe some maintenance got done at some point, and over the, since 1976, and the clock got changed, or got
Yeah,
replaced,
that-
or,
I've had that happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't speak to it, but
Yeah.
I would be comfortable that the 206 is correct. I'll have it double checked, but whether or not that's what it really should be or not, that I can't speak to.
I had a clock on one, it added the time, daytime, so it was like, it was 50,000 hours on that thing.
All right.
Okay, so that was that info. Again, just as a point of info, I received an application today, actually, and just for the commission's info, it's the first, the initial transit-oriented development proposal that's coming in. It's not in yet, it's about to be submitted to P&Z,
Oh, really?
but evidently in that zone, they've got to get evidence that there is sewer allocation available before they then proceed with P&Z. So normally, an application's gonna come into P&Z, Beth is gonna send out the applications to departments, which is then where I would usually get it to review it for water and sewer. With the TOD, evidently, it's gotta get looked at first to make sure there's allocation before they proceed. So it's a totally minor application, so there's no big numbers involved, but
I thought we did that a long time ago when we redid the whole allocation system before you were here.
Yep, we did, and each of the 3 areas has a
Yeah.
certain amount of allocation.
Yeah.
Now you've got a P&Z application that's gonna come in
Yeah.
to this now transit-oriented district
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah,
And one of the requirements of an application in that zone is they've gotta get their okay that there's sewer allocation before they proceed to P&Z, that's all I'm
was
saying.
that our requirement,
Yes, must have been.
the PUC requirement? We did that?
I would assume it's
No,
probably
it's
part of
probably-
the P&Z process.
It's probably P and Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the TOD
Okay.
application.
Yeah, it's part of the TOD zone.
Okay.
So I'm just pointing that out to let you guys know, hey, this is the first application coming in.
Sure.
It's a minor, it's a 2-family with a total of 4 bedrooms, so we're looking at 400 gallons a day.
Oh, okay.
So the numbers don't really mean anything, I just
Yeah.
wanted to let you know that something's come in.
Okay, all right.
So I'll be able to give them a memo indicating that there is sewer allocation available. And the last item that I'll touch on in my director's report is the Health Department consent order from 2016.
Mhm.
I'm gonna kind of go through that and provide DPH with a summary and see what's gonna be involved with maybe getting that closed.
Mhm.
Because we've now complied with several items on it, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
And that's all I have in the director's report, but I got other items to discuss as we go through new and old business.
Right, okay. All right, you guys have any other questions for Tom?
On generators, what did we agree to the last generator? I forgot.
I'm sorry?
The last generator that we were discussing out in Nashville.
Briarcliff for the pump
Well,
station?
Yeah.
You were gonna get numbers on that, right?
I have two quotes. I'm digging out a third quote.
Okay.
We talked about the plug-in, which was part of the original design, versus going with a permanent.
Yeah,
And I think it was agreed to, let's look at the permanent.
right.
So I want to get three prices, and then I'd like to pursue DPH and see if we can get some grant money for getting that.
Okay, thank you.
And-
So it's in the works.
And what was the status of the Eureka?
Same thing. I've got two quotes. I want to get a third, and we're going to submit an application for the replacement.
But right now we have a temporary.
We have a
standby.
temporary, correct.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, so move on to new business. Item number 1, proposal for design of 2019 water replacement. So this is phase, whatever phase this is.
Well, at the last meeting, the commission approved the list of streets for the 2019 water main replacements. So I had asked Wright Pierce to get me a proposal to do the design, construction, and bidding
Mhm.
portion of it. So they've submitted that, and now I'm submitting it here for approval.
So their proposal is to do the design work and do the specs for bidding for $38,245.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so you're gonna need a motion to approve that.
Correct.
All right, well, I'll put that motion on the floor that we approve Wright Pierce proposal for, request for engineering services, proposal for design services for the 2019 water main replacement on Oakland Heights, Grassy Plain Terrace, Highview Terrace, Pleasant Street, and Mansfield Street in the amount of $38,245.
Second.
Okay,
I have a question. Can we put a time limit on this so we get him to move along on?
Well, I've had discussions with them now over the last couple of months in terms of, hey, when we do the next one, I want to get it in the works a little quicker so I can get the construction out to bid prior to July 31st. So I don't know that I see that in here, but I am gonna, get them to move on this quick so I can get it out to bid
Right,
by
yeah,
hopefully May.
yeah.
That's my goal.
Can I ask a question?
sure.
I just was reading through, and I don't know who's responsible or not, but who's gonna do the final as-bills on these? Because I'm looking at the end, the following are not included with the scope. This is for Wright Pierce, the subsurface geotechnical investigation, topographical and property survey, and then the town is supposed to do inspection services and independent materials and compaction. But I didn't see anything there about the as-bills. Who's supposed to do that?
Okay, yeah, I don't think we,
I
don't have
assume
it.
they're probably gonna go pretty much in the same place, but.
They pretty much are, and they give us ties, so we get dimensions, which we get from the contractor. He keeps a book as he's going along.
Right.
If there's a bend put in, or, there's a valve, we get dimensions that we can basically reproduce where those components are.
So we don't necessarily need an actual as.
I don't think I actually need an as-built map, but as long as I get all of that information, which we do.
Okay, one other question. On your attachment A, what the hell do all those things mean? It says tasks, R&D, MDJ, RUC, AEZ, DXX. I have no idea what those things are.
Oh, okay, this isn't my attachment, obviously, Wright Pierce's, but MDJ would be Marius. I think those are the initials of the people.
Oh, okay.
You got it signed by Richard N. Davies, so that would be the R&D. The RJC is Rick Cruanes, he's the engineer that's doing really the bulk of
I
it.
got it.
And those are hours of.
And that's their hours for those particular tasks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how they put this together.
Okay, I got it.
The other people, AEZ and DXS, I don't know, so I'm assuming again they're Wright Pierce employees.
Oh yeah, one's a PE, the other's a CAD guy.
Yeah, guy right there.
Okay. All right, any other
First
questions?
one's their initials, the second one's their expertise.
Yep.
Any other questions, guys? You ready to vote? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve Wright Pierce's proposal, $38,245. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so items 2 and 3 are proposals to update the financial models, the rate models, and I think Mr. Fox, who, I guess he took over from Chris Woodstock, right?
Yeah, I'm guessing, I know Chris retired, I didn't know Chris, I never met with him, but I think he
Yeah.
sold his business, and I'm imagining he sold it to Raftellus.
Yeah, he did, and they've worked with him on the last two. that
Correct.
That they did with us.
So that seems to be the progression.
Yeah. So it looks like they're looking for $10,000 to do the water, update the water rates, and $15,000 to do the sewer.
And Matt, you had asked about some information on what we
Yeah.
paid the last couple of times we utilized this service.
Yeah,
Bob pulled off some numbers here, and there were 3 payments back in 2016 that total about $9,500.
so, all right,
So I'm assuming that probably updated some info.
yeah,
Probably with Marius's, the capital improvement plan info.
yeah,
And then prior to that, in 2014, which there was 4 payments that totaled 19,700. And I'm wondering if that's when they developed the spreadsheet version of that model.
yeah, probably. Yeah.
Back then, in that review, didn't they do sewer and water?
They only did water.
Just water in both of them? The last one was just water, but the one before,
I don't
The one
think so.
before might have, the one before might have been the sewer and water.
Did it really?
maybe. And
I
that's
don't-
why I'm
what year
thinking
was
maybe
that?
or he developed that
14.
plan, because that was the first time we saw that huge spreadsheet.
I think the big spreadsheet is when he developed the water financial planning model, and I think that was the 2014, which it took him 19,000 to do. He's got less in there now to develop the sewer, because he probably knows our system a little better, and now that he's gone through it.
Yeah,
And then I think the update in 16 was him updating the water plan, which is what we're looking for him to do now. And he's on the order of 10,000 at that time as well.
yeah. I don't remember that they did sewer before. I think they only, but
Yeah.
I've not seen any info on sewer, so.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have anything in the file on sewer, do we?
Just,
Yeah,
a lot of these I never even see, so I'm glad to see these. But one of the things that I think that we need to ask them for is, and I don't think you have to make it formal, just, you could do it, Tom.
Mhm.
Just, they should be supplying us with certificates of insurance. And in this case, they should have professional liability.
Yep.
And I think that what we would do is ask them to not only give us a certificate, but to name the town and the PUC as an additional insurer.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
okay, that was all I had.
all right. All right, well, let me put a motion on the floor first to approve the proposal from Raftellus Financial Consultants to do a rate review study for the Bethel Water Department in the amount of $10,000.
Second.
All right. Any other questions? Questions, comments? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. So I'll make a second motion to approve Raftellus' proposal to develop a financial plan for the sewer department in the amount of $15,000.
Second.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I suppose that by the time they get involved in this, we're gonna have a better idea of the cost from Weston and Sampson about what the repairs are gonna cost, so they can be.
Incorporated into that.
I don't know, or should we wait a little bit longer on the sewer one?
I don't think we need to wait. When they did if you remember, the original I&I study where they looked at the whole system, there was a little bit of money left over, and we had them go ahead and put together a capital improvement plan. So they've already given us some
Given that?
estimates
All right, okay.
on a whole bunch of, like, maybe 10 or 15 years worth of work.
Mhm.
So I think we'll be able to kind of, let them run with this, and we'll have to, like, provide, obviously, Dave Fox with that information on those particular projects. What my thought is, with the sewer model, we probably will be able to work backwards, look at what all of our O&M costs, look at what all of our revenues are, look at what we think we're gonna be paying for the Danbury project, and then back into a number on what we can spend on an annual basis. And then kind of play with, what do we want to spend versus how quickly do rates have to go up in order to support that?
Yeah.
So I think We don't have to give him so much, I think, of the specifics of the projects.
Right.
But I think we're gonna back into a number that we can, comfortably spend.
Well, once he's developed the model, those numbers can be adjusted.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah, all right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, guys? All right, hearing none, so we have a motion on the floor to approve 15,000 for the sewer rate study. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Hey, Tom? I signed it, so.
Oh, super, thank you.
Okay, Kelly is not with us tonight, so you didn't have anything to add for utility supervisor report, Tom?
No. He was at a funeral today. I gave him a quick email just to say, hey, get back to me if there's anything of any, importance that you need to report on.
Yeah.
I'll report on something, it's just a curiosity on my part.
Yes.
Highland Avenue, going down, there's two wet sections constantly. I've been noticing it since Christmas, frankly.
All right, yeah, you know what? We had a wet spot there that was there for
Two of them.
quite a bit,
Yeah.
about a month ago, give or take. Dried up, no noise.
It's wet again.
It's wet again,
But-
okay. I haven't driven up Highland now
But-
in a week or so.
I did mention to Kelly, and Kelly had taken water samples,
Okay,
and there's no chlorine in that water.
okay.
So,
It's in Springs.
It's groundwater.
There's a lot of water coming off that
I know.
whole
So right
mountainside.
between the new road and
Okay, I just was
cruising on
concerned.
through, yeah. Because I had mentioned it to Kelly earlier,
Okay.
and he did take water samples of that water, and he said there was no chlorine in it.
All right. Okay, moving on to old business. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have-
Not to say it might not be something new, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. The summit, ownership of, who tackles us, Marty or Tom?
Probably both of us.
Okay.
Marty, one quick question. Did you happen to send the information on to their attorney?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't heard anything back from them,
Well,
so.
that's because, to be honest with you, I just said it today.
Okay.
So what I did was I cleaned up your comments, took out some.
Oh, should I was gonna pass.
Oh, you can pass them out. That's fine.
These were my comments on the various documents that they were looking for. We don't have to go into any real great detail now, but this was sort of my punch list, similar to what we did at the crossing. You know, hey, what do we want from them before we're comfortable taking it on? Do you need another copy?
No, I don't need a copy.
So of all the documents that Marty had that he submitted to, town staff to take a look at, I just kind of generated some comments. I can kind of just go over a couple of quick highlights. The one main item was way back in 2008. The requirement was that we would take ownership of these facilities 2 years after they got their 115th certificate of occupancy. When they were here at the last meeting, the info I got from building department was a date of October 17. They had said it was June of 16, so they were comfortable that the 2 years had already elapsed.
Right.
Mike from Toll Brothers did give me a whole spreadsheet,
Saw that.
and I sent that over to building. They did verify that the numbers are correct. So I think the clock now has already, we're into the clock because they're beyond their 2 years of 115, so I'm comfortable with that. Now it's a matter of they need to just clean up some of these other items.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's what I'm asking for is reasonable or not, I guess will be decided upon.
That'll be negotiated.
And certainly we want some as-built maps from them, so there's some certain definite things we definitely want before we go forward.
Well, one of the things I think you mentioned and they mentioned too is that they're not ready to deal with the sewer with us.
Correct.
I don't know why, but
My guess is, we've told them for a while now, we want that driveway paved and widened down at the bottom.
right.
And they're still building the house right next to that driveway. So I don't think they were quite ready to, they want to get out of that before they're, ready. That's my assumption.
Makes sense.
All right. Okay, so the ball's in their court, right? To come back to
Yes,
us?
I think so at this point. That's what I would expect.
Answer your questions and comments. All right, moving on to item number 2 under old business, proposal for design of sanitary sewer improvements for sub-areas 9, 12, and 15. And to open the floor for discussion, I'll put a motion on the floor to approve the proposal from Weston and Sampson Engineers, Inc. For sub-areas 9, 12, and 15 in the amount of $77,603.05. I want to make sure we got the 5 cents. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, so, you want to just give us a brief rundown? Just
Okay.
go ahead and talk about 14 too.
Yeah, that's next. This 9, 12, and 15, as you all recall, they just recently now just about completed did complete the sanitary sewer evaluation study. That included the closed circuit TV, the manhole inspections. They came in, gave their presentation on it, talked then a little bit about like next steps, which would relate to some of the construction. And if you recall, part of it was what they called excessive infiltration. And then the other portion of that was just basic like preventative maintenance, structural repairs that it would be a good idea to get started on. So what this proposal is to design all of those improvements. And basically the first page is talking about doing the design of all of it and then basically staging the construction into 3 separate phases. Now, I don't know that we're gonna for sure do this in 3 phases, again, depending on the financial model, but they at least are proposing to split it up in 3 different projects, which made sense. I was gonna tackle all the excessive infiltration in phase 1. That was on the order of about $350,000 in construction cost. And then I was gonna take the remainder and split it into 2 years.
Okay.
But again, this proposal is for the design of all of those.
That's what I wanted to make sure.
Yes,
Because they have in here that, that their design will be done within 6 months.
correct. And I was on the phone with him today. He actually thinks he'll have it done in, less time.
Marty, have you had time to look over these yet, or do you need?
Well, I've looked it over, but there's a couple things I think we need some
Clarity?
clarification. I mean, we got a contract that's 6 months, but they say it's possible that their numbers may change. And I'm saying to myself, if it was 3 years, I could understand, but 6 months, come
Yeah.
on.
Well, let me modify my motion then to say approve, subject to final review by the town attorney. Do you still second?
Second.
Yeah, okay. Just to give you some time to look over that, and if you have any questions, feel free to tell them what you need.
Okay.
All right?
Right. I have a question, Tom.
Yes,
They said that we had paid them to do the survey and the inspection of the sewer lines, but they were unable in some areas to get the truck into video certain lines, mainly the trunk lines going down through the swamp.
I think it was that one run there, yeah.
So, have we paid for services we didn't get, or?
No, I think in that sanitary survey evaluation, they included that they may not be able to get in there. I mean, they already knew that from the first survey.
Right, okay.
So the answer to your question is no, we
Yeah,
didn't
okay.
pay for something we didn't get.
Maybe offline, if we can get what they actually did inspect, just on a map.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, did they give any consideration of going backwards? Could they go back up the main rather than go down the main?
Yeah.
I'm just, if they can get into an area where they can get their truck to inspect the main in a reverse direction.
Yeah, it was that kind of that one section along the, where it's parallel with the tracks.
Yeah.
And then crosses over or under the tracks to get to Paul Street.
Right.
That section, we even have a hard time of actually getting to that manhole, locating. What we talked about with them, and the mapping you're looking for is all included in the report that they gave us, so
Okay.
I'll have to double check and see how they distributed that map to us all.
Okay.
There was
All right.
probably a link where we can look at it online, but all the mapping is in there.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions?
Isn't that wouldn't you consider that area as probably where the most infiltration is occurring? To swamp.
You would, but, we have a lot of swampy areas, but yeah, that intuitively you'd think that must be the worst, but not necessarily.
We don't know.
Well, again, I need to look at the report to answer your specific
Yeah.
question. They probably looked at the manhole on the Paul Street side.
Side.
They were probably able to come up with an infiltration number without necessarily
From
seeing.
one manhole to the
Correct.
previous one. see.
They just weren't able to TV camera the
Yeah.
line. I think they were able to block off the line and basically then look at the infiltration coming in at that point.
Okay.
So it might have been more than one section, but I think they were able to at least look at the infiltration part of it.
Great. Any other questions?
Well, I have a general concern about looking for alternate proposals. This one here, the 77, is really follow up on the work that they've already done.
Mhm.
But the next one that we're gonna talk about
Mhm.
really gets the ball rolling again. And if you take this and assume that this can be added to that for section, was it 14?
Yeah.
Surveyor 14, it's $250,000. At that point, should we be looking for alternate bids
You're just going out to an open bid?
besides using Weston and Sampson?
You can do that. What's the time penalty if we were to do that? Because they've already done the preliminary work, they know what they're dealing with.
Yeah, they got a lot
So to
of,
go out to bid, another company's gonna have to,
learn our system.
Catch
kinda,
up the speed on it.
That they are. That's kind of why you don't typically jump around with,
Well, I'm not talking about jumping around, but I'm also talking about, we don't have a comfort zone where they just figure they're locked in. It started to work, so therefore they're gonna get the next
yeah.
7 years worth of work.
Yeah, we don't have to go that far out. Like I said, I think there was a quality-based selection process.
yeah, there was an RFQ process before.
Correct, and I think you looked at, and I don't know what engineers, but probably Weston and Sampson, Ty and Bond, there's other consulting engineers. But I think that process was done, and I think Weston and Sampson was selected, so it's a matter of, hey, when do we want to, go through the process again?
What did we pay for the last survey?
Well, the surveys is a planning study, so the survey projects are actually grant eligible. So the last one, the 9/12/15 was 261,000. And I think the 55% grant, which we're about to basically start going after, was 143. So whatever the 45% is what we basically paid out of pocket. The first larger I&I study was like 314,000. Don't hold me to the exact number, and I think we got recouped with grant money 209,000. So
And there's grant money eligible for this too?
not on the design.
Oh, on
The 77,000 that we're looking at for the 9, 12, and 15, but the 14 is the next planning study for 182. That's grant eligible, so the grant portion of that would be 100 grand, give or take.
But it's still $182,000.
Correct. Yes, we're out of pocket 82. The state will reimburse us 100.
Right, but it's still.
Yes, no, you're right. The bottom line is the total of the project, yes.
So I just, as kind of made a comment before me, I'm a bit underwhelmed with Weston and Sampson's representation. I think we're to this meeting to discuss these things. They seem fairly unprepared. They can't answer a lot of questions. I'm concerned that there may be better out there.
Can I ask another question too
Sure.
on this one here, 9, 12, and 15? And it's just, as a matter of fact, I'm looking here and they talk about excessive, which means you really got a problem, we better do something about it. But then they talk about non-excessive. And their definition is that the cost to rehabilitate the sanitary sewer and remove the infiltration is more than the associated cost to transport and treat the infiltration. And they got down here that phase 2, based on this, and phase 3 are going to be rehabilitation of sanitary sewers and manholes identified as non-excessive. Why would we want to do that?
It's a structural situation, so the pipelines maybe not have excessive infiltration, but based on their age and condition from them looking at the cameras, based on their inspections of the manholes.
There could be something serious.
They're saying, let's structurally repair these components now. You put them off and you wait, you may have a pipe collapse or,
Okay, that makes sense.
so it's kind of more of what I call and what kind of we talked about is more preventative maintenance type work.
Okay, I got it, thank you.
Mhm.
The question I have is, gonna go back on this manhole that they couldn't get to. Can you physically walk to it and see that manhole? Is it underwater or what's going on?
You know, I think Kelly had said that when they did the initial one, they walked through the woods, and I think they found that at the time, there's so much growth, and I think the marker that they had, unfortunately, wasn't a metal pipe, but I think it was a piece of wood that, so, you gotta get in there, we gotta get in there
No, what
really.
I'm saying is, it behooves us to get in there and just clean that out, to just see.
I totally plan it.
Okay.
When I got here in
Don't forget.
January, we cleared out a good stretch of that run that's parallel with the tracks.
Right.
We cleared out with brush cutters. We had a contractor come in and he cleared out 3 manhole runs. And then I've had our utility maintainers get in there with the mower several more times. So we've kept that part of it clear. There's one real tough section when you're going down Worcester,
Right,
and then where this self-storage place is,
right behind.
there's a little like drainage ditch,
Right.
and you got very little amount of land, and you got all those reeds growing up in there, and that's the run that's tough. You really can't get a good piece of equipment in there to maintain it, because he's got a fence, and then you got this ditch right next to
I'm
it.
concerned because the beavers get in there to build dams, and that thing floods. I mean, it floods bad.
My plan is to get in there again, and if I have to get some guys in there manually with some brush cutters and knock down the vegetation and try to find those manholes again, and at least try to set a more permanent marker, that's my goal. By the time last year, by April came and we didn't get to that section, then all the growth came back again. So now that it's
It's
between
easy.
January and March 1st, I want to definitely
Right,
get in
because your
there.
ground's gonna be frozen, you can get in there and you don't have to deal with snakes or anything else.
Exactly.
For long-term, is there any thought about using something like Roundup permanently? Since it's
You
just-
gotta be careful as where you wanna use that, cause
I know.
you don't wanna contaminate your
ground-
groundwater
The
source.
brooks are right next to the
Right.
areas. But once you get it maintained
Yeah,
or chopped down,
You can keep
maintain
going
it
in.
After that.
Right, then it's easier to get in there and keep cutting it. Like I said, we did that one section, those 3 manhole sections, I got a contractor in there, he cut it all down, and now we've used our mower several more times to maintain it. So now I can walk in those 3 manhole runs and get right to it. Where we stopped, there's a drainage pipe that's like disconnected and it's just wet, so we
Right.
couldn't go any further. And again, the reeds are,
Oh, yeah.
8 feet tall.
Right, well, let's work on that. And then,
Right.
just on a comparison, for the other sections, I don't know, 9, 12, and 15, in relationship to the lineal footage, this is 40,000 feet and 225 manholes. What was the other?
I don't have those numbers here with me.
I'll,
It was more, that much I know. I want to say,
all right,
Don't hold me to the
I'll make a
number.
motion,
Amendment?
amend the motion to table it for further discussion. On this one here, I think
Go ahead with
this one's right on the table right now.
The
Yeah.
9, 12, and
Right.
15, we have
Right,
a
that's
motion
the-
for.
We
We only have a motion for 9, 12, and 15.
Right, okay, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
That's the other, we've been on the one coming up, okay. So right now, we have the one, 9, 12, and 15 sub-areas for 77,603. Okay.
Subject to final review by.
So, yeah, subject to town attorney, a favorable review. Okay, any other questions on that one?
No.
We go to A or yes or no? Okay, no, all right. So try your minds, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. So now we're on to the next Weston and Sampson Engineers proposal for sub-area 14 in the amount of $182,320.15. Come up with 15 cents. All right, so,
I would propose that we table this for just a little further information.
okay. Do you want to give any specific direction?
Do you want me to
as what information?
Well, just that, you know, it's, you said the other one was 216,000.
If you want to give me a few minutes, I have it at my desk. I know it was 261,000, and I know I have all the footages together. It's been-
You wanna, is that all right, Dino, or you wanna wait on this a little bit longer?
Well, I can get the answer. I'm also curious about, they've got that same 180-day.
Yes.
Is it achievable in 6 months?
Yeah, they had to go back in the field when they did the 9, 12, and 15 to gather a little bit more information, but generally speaking, I think they had that report done in November, and I think it probably was due in October. They may have missed it by a month or a couple of weeks until we got to the next meeting. But generally speaking, yeah, they've been able to keep up with the dates.
The linear feet, according to the improvement plan they had, is about 60,000 for 9,
12 and 15.
12 and 15.
That was the number I was gonna say off the top of my head, but
60,000.
60,000.
Yeah, but I don't know what the cost was for it.
He said it was 261.
it was 261,000 plus.
That's what it shows on that.
And I think the manholes exceeded 225 also. I think there was more manholes. But again, I have that same table in the other proposal, so I could certainly go down and get it if you prefer.
Well, the next question, Bob, do we have money for it? Or is this
This
something?
is gonna be, will this occur in this year's budget or next year's budget?
Sub-area 14,
Because if it goes to next year,
they're gonna start it in the spring. It'll probably straddle the fiscal year.
well, I think as long as we don't have to pay the entire amount.
We won't.
We should be fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it says they're gonna start 10 days within signing of this. So it's not the spring that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna
They're
get,
talking
When
180
they're gonna do
days
the
from
first
now.
one first, right?
when you do the, if you read through it, I think with the cable TV, they want to do that in the springtime during the high groundwater table. If you look at, on page 2, number 2.3. So they got to get all that field work done, and then they generate the report. So invoices will come in as work gets done.
Done, yeah.
I'm just reading Article 4 here on the timing.
Or it'd be another scenario, we borrow it from the town general fund and then pay it back. And also, have we already applied for a grant for this phase?
For 14,
Yeah.
we're trying to set up a meeting right now in January with the gal from Deep to go over the 9, 12, and 15, and we were going to come in with 14 as well. If it got approved tonight, we were going to piggyback them both at the same time.
All right, so this is eligible then also for
The sub-area 14, yes, planning study.
No, the 9, 12, and 15.
The 9, 12, 15, the design is not,
Is
but the
not.
work that we just had completed,
Was.
yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna meet with them, go over the report, and then get that grant eligibility
finalized.
process finalized.
Final,
And then
okay.
we were gonna add 14 in with it.
Into it.
Yeah. 4.1.
So, do you guys want to proceed, or do you want to table that?
You know, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know exactly what he's gonna start doing 10 days later. Dino, he's probably gonna make some phone calls to contractors and, you know, I don't know what portion of the work he's gonna do within 10 days, but the more important is when you're gonna have it done by.
This one here for
Yeah.
Or could you,
yeah, for the design, but that's all.
10%.
We're all at your office. You know, this one here,
60, yeah.
But in theory, he could finish it this year, right? Or this calendar year.
calendar?
Fiscal year.
Oh, this calendar year, yes, but the fiscal year is gonna end June 30th.
Yeah.
Right. By the time we get this signed and back to them and he gets going, like I said, the contractor, if you can get him going and get that contractor scheduled, then you've got him for when you want him, April. You wait too long, he's off on another project.
He's gonna get- yeah.
You don't have him in the spring, that's when you really wanna study it, because you wanna see the infiltration. To study it in July doesn't make nearly as much sense, because the groundwater table, at least not this past year, but in a normal year,
Yeah.
will be much less.
And Bob, you're comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think even if there wasn't enough money in the budget, I mean, we would do like we always did in the past, like what you just said. I mean, it comes from the town and the town gets reimbursed later on when certainly the grant comes in and then we have the money from the.
And if you recall, there was a budget amount, revenue minus expenses
We did.
that left us with.
We had a surplus.
Of probably several, 300,000,
Yeah.
400,000, somewhere in that order of magnitude.
All right, so where do we stand? Was there a motion at
No.
all on this one?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
put one on the
I'll
board.
put, you want me to put one on? Sure. All right, so I'll make a motion that we approve the proposal for design for sub-area 14, subject to favorable review by the town attorney in the amount of $182,320.15, with an admonition to improve reporting services.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That carries. PUC capital project variance is suffering from the flu. Bill, you have a,
He sent me his report so I could
all right,
get that into the minutes here.
okay.
He's got his typical items. Briarcliff Manor Booster Station, final paving scheduled for next year. The water main replacement design, that would be the 2018 that we're in that we're currently in. Water main's been installed on Farnham Hill. The contractor has now tapped and installed up to the curb valve 6 services. They're not connected yet. I think he just got the tap and he got it up to a curb valve. When the weather allows him to, he's gonna come back. He just did those ones last week. He's in a winter shutdown period until April 15th, but he's gonna try to keep working as time and weather permits. On the Bergstrom Field wells, the sub-consultant is finishing the groundwater modeling for incorporation into the final report. Good model calibration is critical for submission to DEEP, so they're still doing the modeling from the flow test that they did a couple of months ago. We did have the contractor out there to do the additional water quality sampling. They've indicated, again, high hardness. The iron and manganeses are below the EPA secondary standards. However, they may have to be removed or treated prior to sending to the distribution system. A pilot study will be required during the design phase. Water softening system will also be evaluated. What we found was the reason we retested, the colors and the turbidities that we got from the lab were high. And that kind of looked kind of funny to us. So we grabbed samples, the colors were low, turbidities were low. An hour later, they were elevated. And I think it's the iron, most likely, coming back out into solution. So we think that the original lab results were probably high because they didn't analyze them right on the spot. They had them, they held them, then they analyzed them. So that kind of confirmed it. Because I had Ed actually take a third set of samples. Marius took 2 sets to send out to the lab as a check and balance. And then I figured, hey, Ed, come on down, grab a sample, do a color, turbidity, pH, and all of that. And sure enough, they were low, color, turbidity were low. The next day, the color was sky high. So that tells me that the iron is coming out in solution, which means then we will have to do a pilot study to make sure that we can address the iron and manganese. And you don't want to put it in the system and all of a sudden have red water, so.
Is that because it's being exposed to UV, or did you keep the samples in a dark area, or did you leave them just sitting on?
Oh, well, we grabbed, when he looked at it the next day, I didn't ask him where he kept it.
Yeah, no, it's just because I know a lot of times that makes a big difference.
Okay,
You know, so in a pipe where it's dark, you won't see it, the tank, you won't see it,
okay,
but if you leave it sitting on the shelf, you'll see a color change.
okay.
Does that have implications for storage? Like if we open up a well, pump it up to the tank?
Well, I think before you pump it into the system, up and into the tank, you want to be comfortable that,
Yeah, right.
so you're going to do a pilot test.
Okay,
You're going to study it, you're going to,
okay.
I mean, they'll have to get into designing that for us, and it may then lend you may end up with some kind of a treatment system.
Was there a significant delta on the iron concentration before and after?
The irons were high on the initial, and then on the subsequent, they were, I think, a little bit lower, but they were still, you know, somewhat elevated.
What's the hardness?
We didn't do a hardness on this round. The hardness was 312 when they did the initial test. And our Maple Wells are like 280, 275. So they're on the same order of magnitude, really.
Mhm. Is that considered hard or moderately hard?
I think it's considered hard.
Hard?
It is hard. The problem they have is people complain about their hot water heaters going bad.
Yeah,
And because of the hardness, and next thing you know, you got all kind of complaints.
yeah.
Yeah.
Every year I gotta change my,
Oh, we've been getting complaints because there's spots on the wine glasses.
yeah, well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the guy's black, you know, Ford, you know, Focus, when he hosed it down in the wintertime, it left a bunch of spots.
Well, the biggest problem, you have the restaurants with the glasses and stuff. The
Yep.
wine glasses are,
Now, in the last year, I got more complaints from the people that were in the Chestnut Zone that were formerly getting the reservoir water.
yeah, right.
Which, once we started taking all groundwater, pumping it through South Street to them,
Diluting it.
they were kind of getting it now more for the first time, not for the first time, but
Yeah.
instead of getting a blended water, they were getting straight groundwater. And all the complaints I've been getting have been from those people. I haven't really been getting complaints from, and one of my answers to everyone is, hey, we've been serving the same groundwater to 80% of town
Yeah,
since the 60s.
yeah.
So I think everyone else, and I'm not hearing a real prevalence of hot water heaters being changed. You know, you guys may be hearing more of that, but
Before we do any major design over there, will we need, can we find out what some kind of filtration system or what it would cost to install and operate? I mean,
that's gonna have to be part
if
of it.
it's gonna be out of sight, we might need to.
I don't know that it's
think
out of
that
sight.
well as something else.
I don't know that it's out of sight. For that water and that volume, you know, if you have to do some treatment, I mean, it's not unheard of. Chances are it's gonna be some kind of like a pressure filter. Again, what size?
What's the pH, out of curiosity?
The pH was like 7.2,
That's not bad.
7.3, it was good.
That's good.
Yep.
No, that tastes fine.
Now, the problem is if you had to treat it, you would have to treat it at the site.
Yeah.
You may have to build a building.
I think that was part of the overall
I mean,
large
that's what would
plan
happen, yeah.
anyway.
Yeah,
Probably because you got the Maple Avenue wells, that building is, you
Right.
know, seen better days.
Yeah.
So I think the thought was maybe the area of land right behind that building, at least that I think was the initial thoughts. So you're pumping the Bergstrom well over to that site, and you got the Maple wells at that site. You're putting in one treatment facility right there for whatever it is you might need. But remains to be seen until we get further down the road here.
mhm.
All right,
His last two items, SCADA communication study, they've submitted a proposal for the design. And on the Chestnut Ridge tank, Bethel Town Council is negotiating with the property owners. So that was the Wright Pierce report.
okay. Any questions? All right, moving on to the last item, proposal to acquire property. Mark, I don't think we need an executive session, do we? Because it's pretty straightforward at this point.
Yeah, I passed out the letters that they signed,
Yep, signed an intent to sell.
right, and they've been in contact with an attorney, Attorney Brian Dakota, and I got the impression that he's gonna represent them. He was supposed to talk to them today through an email that they got.
All right.
So it looks like, what I'll do is, before we actually draw the contract up, I'll speak to Dodo first to make sure. What we're doing. He may wanna do the contract. Traditionally, the seller does the contract, but because there's so many things we have for contingencies for the town,
Yeah.
that's why I said that we would probably do it, so.
So as far as this board goes, I think the only thing we have to do tonight is make a formal recommendation to the board of selectmen,
Correct.
correct?
That's
Okay.
right.
$198,000.
Yep. And then board of selectmen would refer it to planning and zoning and inland wetland, correct?
Well, the inland wetland, that'll depend when the engineers get out there, whether or not you need to get approval for that.
Okay,
But you could always just submit, when the application submitted to P&Z, you can always submit it to inland wetlands just for
Sure.
review.
Well, we
even
can
if
do
there's
that.
not any on there,
we have to have a special BOS meeting tomorrow night, so we can do it then. Okay. All right, well, I'll put a motion on the floor to forward the agreement to purchase property from Briarcliff Manor Property Group LLC in the amount of $198,000 to the Board of Selectmen for its review and approval.
Second.
Okay, any other questions, guys? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. So.
Does that have to go to Board of Finance?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you know, Marty and I were talking about that. It's a little bit of a gray area, but because if we were just building the tank, we wouldn't have to. I mean, it would be a courteous thing to do, but we wouldn't have to, but because the PUC cannot acquire real estate on its own, the town of Bethel has to, so yeah. So I had a conversation with Bob Lortier about that today, because he was a little fuzzy on what this was. So I explained, essentially, the PUC is gonna ask for a loan, and it's gonna be repaid by some grant money that are attached to the tank and rates. So it's, you know, it's zero impact to the taxpayer, you know.
I don't have a problem, I think the bigger problem is the transportation. You know, I'm spending this kind of money.
Yeah,
We can certainly basically say, well, we looked at other property,
yeah,
the construction cost is prohibitive, we go to high,
yeah,
it's almost ready to go.
yeah, right,
We go cut the cost.
right. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna, Board of Finance meets tomorrow night, so I'm gonna give them a little informational update. We don't need to go down to that. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second.
Those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much.
Is that the meeting tomorrow, is that just for that?
No, it has to do with the Bethel Middle School chiller.
and then,
The